data. I do not accept. I'm not usually a fan of top-down arguments. The "you said so" kind of argument.
Do you believe that there's any kind of moral requirements of human beings? Like, there's where do you get morality if you have any?
Morality. I agree with morality is an interesting topic because there are different types of morality. I would say there's 4 acceptable moralities. There's like virtue. Have you ever heard of the virtue ethics? Deontological. Means ends, and there's some other and like a generic other category that is like trying. Basically, it's saying that there are virtue ethics, which are like the cultural morals, right?
Okay.
There are deontological ethics, which is like law-based methods. Like you shouldn't betray trust. You shouldn't abandon. Like when you sign a contract, you shouldn't break that.
Okay.
And means end, which is judging, which judges for answers. Like, well, not answer. It judges value. It tends to be misused a lot because it's very easily misused. Like, for instance, it's
human rights, equality,
it's
fairness.
An argument that says
Is there such a thing as
if the ends justify the means, then it usually is a good idea.
Without God and His law.
But like you can take that to extreme examples and it makes no sense.
Okay.
Like for instance, I think we should get rid of like this is me being nonsense.
Okay.
I think we should get rid of all cows because then we could feed more people. It would help more people. But does that make it worth it?
Who's right?
Like you get what I'm like.
Yes, the ends don't always justify the means. So morality is basically someone saying you should not do this, right?
Yeah, in the back of your head. Yes.
And so it's kind of law-based, wouldn't you say? Like you only shouldn't do something if there's some kind of law against it, right? That's basically what a law is. A law is saying you should not do this, right?
But a law is something that is created.
Sure.
Whereas morals is something that isn't. Like, so for instance, there is no specific law in the U.S. that says, you shouldn't do X thing. Or, like something that we all agree is bad. Like for instance, a company that lays off a bunch of workers and then doesn't pay them to work something. Right? There's nothing that specifically says they shouldn't do that. But as you shouldn't, like as morality says, you should pay those workers when you fire them. Like,
so some people would say you should pay those workers, right? So that would be some people imposing a law on other people. It doesn't have to be codified in a government system to be a law. I think a law could just be whatever someone says should happen.
That's why I'm saying that there's different types, because what you're kind of describing is a cultural like pressure, which is virtue ethics.
Okay.
Where it's not a law specifically in writing. This is what you can and can't do. It is cultural pressure saying what you can and can't do.
So how do you know who has the right to tell anybody what to do? And
that is the greatest question of mankind. If we had an answer to that, every problem in the world would disappear.
Well, I'm saying the answer is God. God is the only one who has the right to tell anybody ultimately what they should do, and then any human who's telling another human being what they should do has to be in line with what God has said and given in His law in order to be legitimate.
That is a very good argument. I would have to ask, what is your God argument?
The proof that God exists is that if He didn't exist, you couldn't prove anything.
I'm not saying God doesn't exist. I'm saying, what is God arguing that you should do?
Well, it's laid out in the 66 books of the Bible.
In the 66 books of the Bible, okay.
His revelation to humans concerning what they should do.
The Bible has been interpreted in 10,000 different ways, and I agree with some of those ways. I don't agree with other of those ways, because the people that interpret the Bible are human and therefore imperfect. God is a perfect being. It's supposed to be, but like humans who exist in the material world are material and therefore imperfect.
Sure.
There is no perfect interpretation of God.
I wouldn't say anybody, any specific human is 100% correct on all of the Bible, but the Bible tells us that God inhabits human beings through the Holy Spirit and gives them the ability to understand His words. And so through that, we have a way to justify beliefs.
Yes.
We can have an epistemology that actually produces truth in the Christian worldview. How do you justify any belief that you have about anything as an agnostic who's not trusting specifically in revelation from the Almighty Being?
Where I get my beliefs from is I believe in good for humans. So does God. I believe in good humans as well.
You're saying that humans are good?
No, I believe in good for humans and the good of humans.
Okay. So who defines that?
Who defines that is the culture defines that, and it goes from, and it changes by time. In, say, for instance, in like the middle of the 17th century, like the 18th century, the French Revolution and stuff, that was a call for like down with the tyrants.
What will the history
and
books say about you? When you go home with the majority to do evil,
in the 19th century, that was a call for better workers' rights and like the socialist movements, and it changed.
So you're saying what's good for humans according to their cultural context?
I cannot say with 100% certainty that cultural context is always going to be the answer. Because cultural context. Okay.
Because like, who determines what the cultural norm should be? Like, I mean, you have people in certain cultures who think that it's okay to murder other human beings, and they might be in power, and they might establish a cultural norm that certain human beings are not worthy of life, and they might propagate that idea in the culture so that many people in the culture believe that a certain group should be murdered.
I agree.
And that wouldn't be just, would that?
That would never be just.
Okay, by what standard would that not be just? How do you know that would not be just?
Because
is it just your own opinion?
That hurts the people. That hurts people.
But why is it wrong to hurt people?
In America, we still celebrate.
That is a good question, because that is an answer that is formed in belief rather than. I as an agnostic do not necessarily believe in a God, but I believe in humans, and so my belief is that something that is good for a human is good.
I have an idea. Maybe you should get.
So who defines what's good for a human? And like, why should human beings have good be done to them?
Why shouldn't human beings have good be done to them?
I didn't say they shouldn't. I'm just asking why they should. Like, why should you? Like, how do you know that good should happen to human beings? Maybe good shouldn't happen to human beings. So why do you believe that good should happen to human beings?
Because if good shouldn't happen to human beings, then that is a very dismal thought and very dismal existence.
Well, why does that matter? What's wrong with having a dismal existence? You don't like that, but maybe somebody could like that, or maybe somebody could want that, like a masochist. Maybe somebody who likes pain could want that. There are people who enjoy pain, right?
Yes, but you see, the thing is, that is not a dismal existence for them.
Well, it is, and it isn't at the same time. I think you can enjoy pain and feel the agony of pain at the same time, right? I think you can feel different emotions at the same time.
Yes.
But again, ultimately, why should anybody like feel pleasure? And like, ultimately, it seems like you think good is people not having a dismal existence, not feeling pain.
Yes, I do.
Okay, so it seems to be pain based, or like pleasure based.
Kind of. The pain and pleasure are extremes of this thing. I'm talking good. Good does not necessarily mean pleasure. Pain does not necessarily mean bad. I'm talking about things that are more common everyday things, like the ability to have a nice cup of coffee. That, in a dismal existence where you aren't allowed a cup of coffee in the morning. Do you want to live in a place like that? Do you want to live in a place where you can't eat, can't breathe, can't move, can't live?
I mean, yeah, like, but good is different for different people, and
Yes.
pleasure and pain is different for different people.
Yes.
And a rapist could say that he's in a lot of pain because he can't rape somebody, right?
Yes.
So how do you determine like that he shouldn't rape somebody, because that would give him pleasure and get him out of some pain, right?
Pleasure is not good for human beings. Does not necessarily mean good. That is not a good. It is a. That is quite a bad, actually. But like, good is. It's subjective. This is all. That's the problem with this. It's all subjective. Good is, for instance, for say a rapist, that is not a good thing because the person they are raping is not, it's not having a good time. It's not, it's.
So who do you get to
attack
say,
on
so,
them.
so who gets to say who gets to have a good time and who doesn't? Like, so why choose the person who's being raped to say they shouldn't have pleasure? They shouldn't be deprived of pleasure, and like why protect them, but not protect the rapist's pleasure?
People have been asking that question for 300 years, and nobody's listened to them.
And there's no way to determine whose pleasure you should protect without revelation from Almighty God. And on top of that, you can't even prove that human beings exist without revelation from God. How do you justify any belief about anything without revelation from God?
Actually, you technically can, because I think, therefore I am. So,
Well, how do you know that any given consciousness lasts long enough to say or think the word I?
that's like the arguments the world started last Thursday, which it
Well, I
didn't.
mean, how do you know that, like, we have conscious experience that seems to continue through time, and it seems to be one consciousness that experiences things in a series of events. But how do you know that the nature of reality is not one in which there are micro consciousnesses that last for a nanosecond, and they come into existence to go out of existence in a rapid succession that gives the illusion of there being one consciousness that continues in time? How do you know that it's not happening?
You don't.
Okay, so then I think, therefore I am falls apart.
I think there.
Because you can't prove that any given consciousness lasts long enough to say or think the word I. And how can you have knowledge in that in a worldview without revelation from God? Because knowledge requires belief, right? Knowledge would be justified true belief. So how do you know that any given consciousness lasts long enough to have a belief? Because having a belief is an action that happens in time, and there's a certain amount of time that is required for a belief to occur, for belief to be had, for that action to occur. So how do you know that maybe consciousnesses last? So maybe consciousnesses don't last long enough to establish a belief, So
They don't.
I'm saying there's no way to know what the true nature of reality is without revelation from God. Like it could be that way, but if it couldn't be that way, or if it's possible that consciousness doesn't last long enough for that, then you're always left in limbo, unable to justify your beliefs, that you unable to say I know this, because you don't have justification. You need justification in knowledge, right?
Yeah, sure.
You can't just believe something that has no justification, right? So you have no justification for the belief that any given consciousness lasts longer than a nanosecond.
You can believe something without justification.
You can, but you would be irrational, right?
No, that is very human.
So okay,
in fact,
so if I say the moon is made of cheese and I believe that and I have no justification, then that's a good thing for me to believe.
That is an opinion that does not make it fact. But it does not. Even the most rigorous of all fields, the most scientific, the one that we can argue the least about, which is mathematics, is formed on the foundation of belief. They are called these are basically, like in math, you would say, these are things we just have to accept as true, because otherwise everything falls apart. There are things like 1 + 1 = 2. A line is a distance that connects two points. These are all things you just have to accept as true. Even in mathematics, they exist.
So does knowledge matter to you, or do you just believe things without justification?
Knowledge does matter. And
So how do you know anything?
Believing things, because I research and I read and I learn what other people have used as arguments to support their arguments.
But those are unjustified because you can't even prove that those people exist.
They're not unjustified because they've provided ample proof that at the very least they are more probable than not.
Well, how do you have probability when you don't know the true nature of reality? How do you know that anything's more likely to happen than anything else if you don't even know the foundation, like the basics of what reality is? Like, I mean, maybe everything's just a bunch of shapes and colors and concepts floating around, and the material world doesn't exist. Maybe it's just all immaterial. So you can't make sense of anything without revelation from the all-knowing being who tells our finite minds what's true. Like, because we could always be wrong because we don't know everything, right?
We could always be wrong.
So that's why we need the all-knowing being to tell us what's true.
I'm willing to accept that we've always been wrong, and that is something I'm willing to accept.
So you embrace absurdity. Like, you can't prove anything that you attempt to prove or establish evidence for.
I'm willing to say, like, say someone comes up with a new theory of reality and backs it up with regimented argued beliefs and argued opinions, and like they've done tests and those tests have showed that reality behaves like this. I'd be willing to accept that new reality.
How can you do tests if you don't know the true nature of reality? You can't. Because you could always be wrong about what you think is true.
Just accepting something from above is better?
I'm saying everybody puts faith in something.
Yes.
We all operate on faith. Faith is just another word for belief, and belief is required for knowledge. So I'm not going to put faith in a worldview in which the only type of consciousness that exists is finite and limited and doesn't know everything. So I'm going to put faith in a worldview in which the all-knowing being reveals to finite consciousness what's true, so that finite consciousness can be justified in their beliefs.
Okay.
So that's the proof that God exists, is that if he didn't exist, you couldn't prove anything. People say, prove that God exists. Well, how do you prove anything? Well, God would have to exist for proof to exist. That's the proof. Mm-hmm. You have to assume that he exists in your attempt to justify any belief.
That is a theological argument that I will support, that you can have. Yes.
And I encourage you to embrace it, and think about how it's inconsistent to claim that you know things when you're not putting faith in a worldview in which the all-knowing being tells you what's true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, nice discussion. That was a great discussion. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Awesome.